my sense is that where we really achieve that harmony internally, it will have huge implications for the world. A lot of violence will come to an end because we are really participating in a great deal of internal violence within ourselves that we are maybe conscious of, maybe not, but it is expressed externally. In wars, it's expressed, in the machismo, really.
Yeah, of course.
And we have machismo here too, although I have to say American women are probably the sassiest women in the world. I realized it at one point, having seen women in Egypt, women in South Africa, without any doubt, we are the mouthiest women in the world.
So, hi, I am Marcia. I am here from Mexico City, and I am talking here with Rose, a beautiful woman who has had a path of spirituality for many years, and throughout her life she has experienced very beautiful things, and especially in a very recent trip that she did to Egypt. So I am here with her, and she will be sharing very profound things. Thank you very much for giving us this time, Rose, and sharing these experiences that are really intimate.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's such a pleasure. I always like to talk.
That's great. You talk a lot now.
Listen, hello. It's wonderful. Well, there were actually 2 trips. I took a trip in November, and then some things happened along this line that we are discussing, and then there was the April trip. So I'll say more because there's quite a bit of background to this. This did not appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, that would be great to start with where you wish, but to understand where you come from.
Where I come from is kind of a warlike situation for me with men. Really, initially, just complete inability to really compromise myself. And I actually did have to compromise myself utterly when I was, there was a man I was with for 5 years, and it was 5 years of, well, we almost killed each other, is how I would put it. And I was the one who broke. I was the one who gave in. I was the one who surrendered completely and utterly. And at that moment of surrender completely to my situation, since I was not able to leave, in spite of intense abuse, I had to say, well, I'm here. And that is what liberated me. I don't recommend this for everyone, but that's what liberated me. And I was able to regain my center, my own core, through this surrender. I think Spirit was asking me to have this experience, to have the experience of being completely dominated. So every moment of my life was run by somebody, and I was living in fear of that, in fear of the physical, emotional, mental repercussions. And I learned, I just simply said, there's nothing I can do about this, because I was not able to leave. I was forever trying to leave. But I think many women have this experience. They fall in love with this man, and then there's a cycle of abuse, and you can't leave you don't know why. And I did leave after 5 years, but it was a very long 5 years. It felt like 30 years, and it was I think I met him when I was 25, and when I was going through the first Saturn return. I don't know if you're familiar with astrology. the first Saturn return, age
more or
20.
less, but I don't know what that means.
That means I've had experience of two of them now. Every 28, 29 years.
All right.
Shall I explain?
Yeah, please.
Okay. The planet Saturn makes its complete transit through all the different houses, and it comes to the place of your natal place. It comes to the place where it was astrologically when you were born.
Okay.
So it comes back, and Saturn is it's about responsibility, it's about form, it's about structure. But what happens is you are facing yourself so directly. You have no illusions left. And this is age 29. Whatever illusions or in that first Saturn transit, whatever illusions and imprinting you got from your family, your friends, your social milieu, all that is sort of shattered. It's like you see through it. And now you begin to understand and feel and see your true place in the world. It's very sobering. I mean, all the bullshit is suddenly like... So it was quite... and I felt tremendous sense of disillusionment. But I was freed in that moment because I was disillusioned. I had a lot of beliefs. I was with him because he would take care of me. I ended up taking care of him. I was with him because we would be able to do these things together. He would protect me. I was living in New York City. I was afraid a lot in a big city. I had a lot of fears. Although at a certain point I started studying martial arts, and my fear cleared up from doing martial arts. Isn't that interesting?
No, that's
but
incredible.
It didn't help me in this relationship. Martial arts. But anyway, so I had a big wound in relationship to men, and I had that before I met this man. That was there always, and I don't know, So anyway, I'm going to try to stay on the topic. So here's the Saturn transit, and I was able to leave and then see that my life was more about service and not particularly about childbearing or marriage. And I also felt, and I made this assumption that I would never be able to get along with men. I could just forget about it. But it was hard because you're young, you have a libido.
Of course.
You still want a life, a sensual life.
Yeah, it's very natural.
Yeah, but so I had this and that, but what I did go into was the healing arts. I was working in a hospital. I was working in a drug detox unit, and I found it was very early on in the evolution of Chinese medicine as a practice in the United States. But I got involved in Chinese medicine, and I went to school and so on. But this particular issue hounded me. It was never really fully resolved, never really healed. And even though I had relationships with men, they never really went that deep so that I could get into that place. And I'm not even sure that you can with an individual man. I know what happened to me with these experiences in the temples in relationship to male energy was completely God-given. There's no way that I could have accessed this by myself, nor is there any way that I could have even done it through a relationship. Not me. Maybe somebody else. I don't say it's impossible.
Yeah.
this is impossible if you want to know the truth. Very hard because the healing has to happen internally, and men and women are wounded, and we really need, I really need that divine love, the intervention. And the most important thing of all was that I was open to it when it came. That is what counted. It doesn't matter whether you've been doesn't matter what you've done. If in that moment, when it is available and you are awake enough to feel it coming in and to experience it, and you don't push it away, then it is yours. Then you are healed, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
so what happened after these relationships? I wanted to ask you before is you said that you had this wound before your relationship with this man. Do you believe this wound, you were born with this wound?
I think so. I'm certain of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Do you believe we all women have this wound?
Well, I can't take a head count, but if I have it, and I'm not that unusual, I would say most women do. There's very, very few women, I think, that don't, because we've had many lifetimes, and the last 6,000 years have been such a difficult time for women. It's been a time of great growth for us. This is true, but shame and humiliation and slavery and being dominated and learning how to deal with that. And so we learn to be malicious, we learn to be sneaky, we learn to be manipulative, we learn to compete with other women, we learn all sorts of things, but we also learn how to be humble, we also learn how to surrender. And surrender is the key thing. So we are really in a very good position to receive these new energies that are coming in. And this is where I think it's very difficult for men, because they will be giving up what they perceive as power. It's not really true, but that's the perception. Whereas, what do we have to lose? We have only to gain.
Yeah.
We're in a very good position.
It is right. Yeah, we're like waking up to the power that is not outside; it's inside.
It's inside, and we have been convinced for the last 6,000 years that we are nothing, that we are dirt. That in order to reach God, we have to go through a man. This was one reason I was so involved with this man. I wanted God, and I thought that I could get that through a relationship. It wasn't really in those words. I was 25, but in the feelings, yes. And also, I believed when I was young that it was something that I believed in sacred sex. I had that. It was built into my system, because it certainly wasn't part of my imprinting or training from my parents. But I mean, you can just imagine being with a regular man. But that's lie. We were not on the same page.
Right.
I was there.
They didn't understand.
No, I mean, it just...
yeah.
I was all out. I was attached to him. I was deeply attached. And I had a lot of ideas that came out into the open, as well as a lot of my neuroses and my fears and everything. When I met him, my unconscious came out, and I had a full all-out breakdown for about 6 months. And I didn't take drugs, which meant that I got to see the whole thing. And then it ended like it started. One day I got bored with it. It's amazing, because even a person's insanity has this repetitive tape-like.
Yeah.
And you get tired of it if you're hearing it constantly. One day you're healed enough and you go, nonsense. So anyway, so that's when I started going into my second profession, which was acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And I had initially been trained as an artist. I had gone to art school. I always had a pretty good right side of the brain.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So what happened at the temples? Well, I went over it once before. Yes.
Before I'm sorry. Before you talk about your two latest trips to Egypt, why don't you talk about um, your skills, that the skills that you learned, some of the skills that you learned with Leslie, or some to introduce this teacher, wonderful teacher that inspired you in so many ways.
Well, she did. But you know, before I had this wonderful teacher, I had some teachers that were wonderful and not so wonderful. I had a male teacher, and I learned. I would like to speak about him
Yeah.
and some of the people that he worked with, and other teachers that I worked with. One was named Dolly, and Ira. The two of them were enormous teachers for me. I really learned about my emotional body. I learned how to track what was going on, and I just began to have a witness. When I met Leslie, the witness was strengthened immensely. So I already had this knowledge of my own emotions, inside, outside. I had explored it profoundly for over a decade. That's a long time. And I have to say that I lived during that time in semi-hysterics because I didn't have a great witness. Because I was constantly experiencing all these emotions and I was pulling them up to the surface without much of a witness. But I learned a great deal from that. I learned I learned everything I think there is to know about my own emotional body, and developed these abilities to actually see what was happening with other people, which was useful if you work as a healer. You know, you can see, you can address something directly, more or less. Anyway, when I met Leslie, she's an incredibly articulate woman. She's a Westerner, but she's an awake being, so she can speak to us. We are Westerners. We have language, you know. And they have teachers that never talk. You know, they don't. They just and Indians are fine with that. They get it, you know. But we want to be talked to.
Yeah. The mind still wants to understand some things, right?
Yes, we have a mind. We have a left brain. It's good to have both. It's good to have a balance. That's for sure. And I don't know. I don't even know how to speak about Leslie. All I know is that I saw her and I felt an immediate response from within. And I feel like this is a being that is now inside of me. I am no longer just Rose. I am no longer just that. I don't really know what I am anymore. But Leslie used to say, I'm a collective. I'm not a person. I am a collective. Meaning that all kinds of energies flow through her. And, I had a number of different initiations. And there was one in which literally I saw her walk into me. This was in Greece, in Delos. And the spot, it's a very particular spot too. It used to be a big tree there, and that's where the nymph, I think she was nymph, Leto, gave birth to Artemis and Apollo.
Okay.
the feminine.
Wow.
And Artemis was born first, and then Ito was in labor with Apollo for 9 days, and Artemis helped her. Artemis helped her mother to birth Apollo.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That's
But
beautiful.
that spot.
Wow. And that was where your experience of
Yes, it's an
wow.
initiation. A lot of us wanted to become ministers of core light, and I asked for that particular initiation, and that was the spot where it happened. A lot of us had our initiation in Delphi, but I wasn't ready. But when we got to Delos, to that particular place, myself and another woman had our initiations, had our empowerment in Delos at that particular spot. Oh gosh, there's something that came into my mind and it went, and I wanted to talk about it, but I forgot.
Please.
Remember, my brain is like a.
When you remember, go ahead. It will come. If it's important, it will come.
I was talking about my teacher's teachings, and she is probably I've had a number of teachers, and I think of all the teachers I've had, I've been touched very deeply by many of them, and they are still here with me. But this is the being, the collective, and it's true, she is a collective, and the example of this particular life is so compelling to me that I want to be in contact with it.
That's great. And so, to what I know, she organizes these trips to very sacred places.
Oh, yes. Now you remind me what I wanted to tell you about. Why were we in Greece, right?
Okay.
Greece. And this has some bearing on this whole conversation. We were in Greece because we were following the Michael and the Athena lines, the ley lines that circled the planet. There's a masculine line and a feminine line, and the Michael-Apollo line. Michael for the Christian era, Apollo for the pre-Christian era. That's the masculine line, and the Athena, I guess, Mary line.
Yeah.
And there are places where these lines cross, and those are places of great energy, tremendous energy. Because when the masculine and the feminine unite, we have, great energy.
Of course.
It's perfect. It's
unity.
Unity. We have unity. So we were coming to these places to help awaken the feminine, or to, I don't know what, maybe empower ourselves, but also to say, we are here and we want you. This is my interpretation. But we came to these places where we were following actually the line that had been doused out by, I forget his name, Hamish Miller. He wrote a book called The Dance of the Dragon, and he went through Europe and other places, the Middle East as well, and to douse out. Do you know what dowsing is? You use a stick or... Anyway, to find these places where energies were really strong. And it's not that hard because most of those places have things built on them. They have temples on them. For example, the Parthenon. That's lit.
Of course, on purpose, these people knew about this line.
So that's why we went to all these amazing places, including the Parthenon. Let's see. So all this was going on, Greece and France, and then Greece again. So this went on for years. I traveled like this with her.
So I wanted to ask you about these feminine and masculine lines, because I've heard about the ley lines, but I didn't know that there were feminine and masculine, and they the cross. You know about this? Could you explain a little bit more about this?
Not an expert. It's been a while, but there are all kinds of lines, and those two lines in particular were the ones that he was following with a group of his friends, and they were mapping them, and they wrote it up, and then people started going to these places. There was a church in Corfu, way up high. I don't think the priests there were very happy about this. I can tell you.
I can imagine.
Happy with us. They knew what we were doing. We went in there and sat in the church quietly to meditate. And oh my God, the priest barreled in with an aluminum ladder. I mean, this is right in the church. There's an altar and everything. And he's banging around with an aluminum ladder. And there's 17 women sitting there quietly meditating.
That's incredible.
One bit, not one bit. And of course we were just outrageous. We were running around all over the place, opening doors, surprising people. And the places were sacred in antiquity, and usually, oftentimes, there's a church, something from a more recent era, on top of
That's
it.
Right.
Just like at Chartres, the cathedral in Chartres was originally, it's got legs.
Yeah. They did that here also in Mexico and many other countries with the sacred places, right? With the pyramids, the original pyramids, they constructed churches on top of the pyramids.
Yeah. And Leslie said something so interesting. She's just said that was a way to protect these places, that you create another sacred structure on top of it. I mean, It's a way. We experience these energies and learn as much as we can. You absorb what you can, what you're able to. And I think my capacity increased for esoteric information, for intelligence, spiritual intelligence, as we went through these places. Your body can take in what it can take in. It develops. It's something that has to develop. So I can't tell you any more about these lines, but you can read the book.
Yeah, that's great. I will read the book.
The Dance of the Dragon by Hamish Miller. I'll send you an email with the name.
I'm
yes.
sorry. No, go ahead.
Human body. The human body has acupuncture, has meridians in it. They're ley lines for the human body, and they've been mapped out by the Chinese.
Yeah.
And a long time ago, and maybe even before that by the Indian people. And then we access the meridians through specific points where the power congregates. And it's the same idea with the earth. There's specific points where the power comes together, where a number of the meridians or ley lines crisscross.
Yeah.
There are specific points on the body like that.
And the same. We are the microcosmos of the macrocosmos, right?
That's one prime example.
And so I imagine that Egypt is one of these power places where this line cross, right?
Well, Egypt is the power place of all power places.
Of course.
I think it's where the gods came down and lived, and maybe there are other places. I think Mexico is a place like that too, to tell the truth. But I know less about it than I do. I mean, I traveled more in Egypt, but I'm hoping to come to Mexico.
Yeah, whenever you want, you're welcome.
And go through the pyramids. I did come when I was 22. I came specifically to see the pyramids. It was something I could afford.
Really? And in Teotihuacan here in Mexico City?
I went to Teotihuacan, I went to Monte Alban and the other city in Oaxaca. I went to Chichen Itza. Um, we didn't make it to Tulum. It had just been opened. That was 22. It was 40 years ago. And you know, a lot of these places, I went to Palenque. There was
Wow.
nobody there.
That was,
Pyramids were still covered with, jungle.
that's
Uh,
right.
there was nobody there. And I was there by myself, sitting there on top of these pyramids often. But now I think a lot more people come. People really want the power
Yeah,
places.
I know. Well, you were really connected to these power places since you were young, right? You were really attracted to these places.
I think so. I think, yeah, I was. I was dying to travel when I was young. Had absolutely no money. And so I had a little bit of money, so I went to Mexico. You could do that, Flew into Merida and they count your money and then they tell you how long you could stay. I could stay a month. So that,
Wow.
I was able to stay a month for $200.
No, I would like to go now to how did you get to these two latest trips that you were going to tell us about to Egypt?
So the one in November, it was a trip for a group of women and we have been Leslie's students, long time students of Leslie, and we had been together for a number of years and worked with each other and processed through a lot of our difficulties. And believe me, with each other, they were there. You have a group of women and they always turn to the teacher, but we finally learned to turn to each other for support and love. But we went with our teacher and Leslie's partner came with us. So he was the one man with us. And this is the usual trip. One man, Brad, holding the male part. Can you imagine? Just one. That was what was so great about the trip. In April, it was almost even. So it was very significant that we had more men who were really in their hearts, who were moving into the new paradigm themselves, which is not easy for a man. We are very powerful, we women. We're powerful in our hearts.
Yeah.
And for them, it's like becoming extremely, showing a deep vulnerability. And they have to find a way to integrate their solar plexus, the power center, with the heart, which I think is a pretty tricky situation. And, the contempt men have for men who are not powerful, who are not strong, and women too. I mean, you just get it from both sides. So it's a job for men. But we did have these lovely men. But let's just say the male contingent was bigger than I've ever experienced before. And there are quite a few people who were not part of Core Light, the organization that Leslie has created with her partner Brad. And so something happened between us. There's a way that just on the trip itself, energies merged in a way that I haven't seen before. I've been on these trips with women and they're powerful and they're wonderful and I have no complaints. But this was something else. This was 10 times more energy. It was so vibrant and so alive. I have to tell you, Marcia, I think I slept maybe 3 hours a night, if that much.
Wow.
So, we were just awake. It was okay. It was fine. And the days just seemed to go on and on and on. There was it was wonderful. I don't know how it was for other people. I'm talking for me.
Yeah. So you felt like a kind of balance, that there started a balance between the feminine and the masculine. Was that what were you perceiving?
Not perceiving anything. I didn't know what it was. I had never experienced anything like that before. So I don't know what I was perceiving. Looking back on it, maybe that is what it's like when there is more of a merging and a new paradigm expresses itself. No one is really in charge, and there's a flow, and it's like it's like a river that's been dammed up. And you know what happens behind the dam? There's a placid lake, and underneath the lake, the sediment starts to form. Well, you break open the dam, and the water just rushes out like crazy. You get balance, but what you get is a ton of energy, and everything is just flying in all directions. So that's what it was like, Marcia. Yeah. But it wasn't disordered, I didn't think. But there was a lot going on. It was exciting. It wasn't, quote unquote, peaceful.
Yeah. And then also you were at the elections of day, right? And
yes, we went into the pyramid, and it was not my first experience in the pyramid. But you go there. We went there, I think it was at dusk. And so you had, some of us went a little bit ahead, all of us in our 60s, huffing and puffing through the long gallery, and it's hot in there. And the space inside, we were in the king's chamber. Yes, it was during the elections. The elections took 3 days. And this was the first day, I believe, of the elections, and I think the Egyptians were incredibly excited. They hadn't had an election for president. I don't know, maybe once. Maybe they had an election sometime in the 1920s. Maybe.
So it was the first time.
Very long time.
Well, it was a celebration, really.
You can't even imagine how thrilled people were, how proud they were of themselves, and how happy they were just to be able to go to the polls. Things that we take for granted in a way. It's absurd. And in a way, it was like, wow, So there was an outpouring of heart energy and delight. So we went up there, and it's King's Chamber. It is like an echo chamber. It's all made of granite, and granite conducts sound in the most profound way. And you see that in those cathedrals of Europe as well, like Chartres. So we were in there, and each one of us laid down in the sarcophagus that is there, that's made of one single block of granite. And there's an initiation that happens when you're in there. There's a dissolution of your body, and there's a connection, and it can come and you can get, I think everyone has a different piece when they go in, and I've been in 3 times now, and each time something completely different happened. So you just don't know what's going to happen to you. The first time, I went out into the cosmos, okay, and the sarcophagus held me. I thought I was lying down, and I was lying down, but it felt like I was standing in a doorway with the sarcophagus holding me so that I wouldn't fly out into the stars. The second time I had a death. I died. My body died. This was the one in November. And this time I couldn't even, all I know is I was very, my heart was beating, beating, beating. I was terrified, and that nothing was going to happen to me this time.
Yeah.
I saw something sit up out of my body and leave. I couldn't tell you any more than that. And I was helping. I was also assisting people to get in and out of the sarcophagus, along with some of the other women and Leslie. we were assisting people, and it was just a profound experience. I don't even know how to talk about it. So that's the pyramid during the elections, and we were in a very, very high state. Again, the pyramid is a place where the energy comes in. There's a lot of cosmic energy that enters the pyramid. The people who are in the pyramid somehow become the carriers, I think, to some degree of that energy. And we meditated in there. And our meditations and our love, I think, went out to the Egyptian people. And our gratitude, deep gratitude, we were able to go in there. They made it available to us.
Yeah. We could go to where you went with the goddess Sekhmet and your experience with her and what happened afterwards.
Like that? Would that be good?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great story, yeah.
Well, it was very hard to go visit the goddess Sekhmet because she was being renovated. She's being restored. But we snuck in the middle of the day while while she was having lunch. The restorer was having lunch. Snuck in, and there she was in her full magnificence. You know, Marcia, if you hang on, I'm going to get a little statue that I brought back with me.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Okay, can you see this?
Wow, yeah, wow, she's beautiful. Wow.
She's a lion.
Yeah. And
see?
Yeah.
She's made of granite, weighs a ton.
That's beautiful.
And granite is very dense. It also is somewhat radioactive.
And the original sculpture is made with granite also?
Yes, it is, I believe. But the sculpture we saw, it's a full length, it's the whole body. Mm-hmm. I'll show this little one. It looks a little bit like this. This is kind of small. Mm. It's a little bit like this, but she is holding a staff right here that goes right down the center of her body.
And she has like a sun on top of her, right?
She has this, and the granite one has a disc like this going around. She's bigger than human size. Maybe, I want to say, 9-10 feet tall, something like that. So powerful. And as I told you before, she is in her original spot where she was. So there's just that place you could cut the atmosphere with a knife. It was so thick and profound. And we didn't spend long. We sort of took a few, 10, 15 seconds in front of her, each one of us. We had maybe a total of 10 minutes in there. But it was strong. So then we proceeded to the Temple of the Moon, which was a very different kind of a place, very gentle, very sweet energy. I mean, she is fierce. Look at this.
No, it's incredible.
This is the real stuff.
Yeah.
She's like a form of Kali, and she is a lion-headed goddess.
And also she has these attributes that are linked to the lions, the white lions, right, that we were talking about the last time.
She's a cosmic being. She is fierce, but fair. Oh, God. Yes. And generous. Very generous with love. The very first time I went to Egypt was in 2000, and I went with Leslie, and that was when I first met her. And Leslie said to us that Sekhmet spoke to her and said that we could ask her for any boon, for anything we wanted. that we could speak to her and ask her, and she would speak back. So I asked, I was 50 years old at the time, and I felt that there had been that I was not allowing myself to love as fully as I could. I was not allowing myself, I was holding back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Problem, right? Holding back the love that was there. I was like this. And so I asked her to be able to love fully, completely, without any withholds. And she said yes. She said that she would help me do that. So
Wow.
I did. You can go and
No, I'm going to go. Ask her many things.
oh,
But did you feel, when you asked for this, did you feel this immediately, or it was a gradual process?
a gradual process.
Yeah, okay.
Sort of thing that you forget that you even asked.
And then you realize, no?
You realize one day, oh,
Yeah.
gee, it's happened.
Yeah.
Something in nature. Isn't this amazing? Because that's how it is. You know, we're such children. Oh, give me this. I want it now.
Yeah.
But then a few years later, you go, oh, I have really changed. What's happened? And then you go, oh, I asked for that. I asked for that, and it was given. So I have to say these kind of things really tend to build faith.
Yeah.
And Sekhmet, Rose, God, Aten, whatever. Thank you. Thank you, I say.
Yeah.
So that was really the big encounter with the solar feminine. And she has a masculine aspect. She has in herself, I would think, a very powerful male energy as well as a very powerful feminine energy. She is united in herself.
Mm-hmm.
Her aspects are very different. There's Sekhmet, there is Hathor, which is this, I have some earrings, but she's like our goddess Venus a little bit. She's the goddess of love and beauty and music, and she has little cow ears, and she's a healer, and she was the consort for Horus. And this is Isis, is another aspect of the Divine Mother.
Yeah.
These all the different aspects of the goddess. And then there's Sekhmet, who seems to be my particular friend.
Well, she pushed you in a way to have the experiences afterwards, right? You know.
She pushed us all.
Yeah.
all pushed hard. And
So tell us about this experience that you had.
the one in the temple.
Yeah. With
So,
Daniel.
Yes, I will tell you. So we walk in there, and it's beautiful. There's some statues of baboons, and it's just beautiful in there. And I think all of us were sort of out of it. You think you're normal, but you're not. And I was standing there. We were in some part of the temple, and our Egyptologist was going on and on about it. And I think I was just completely zoned out. And I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I could feel Daniel put his hands on my shoulders, and it felt like a ton of weight. But when I saw the photo afterwards, he was barely touching my shoulders. But it felt like, I mean, not bad. And I had an internal experience in that moment of that love coming in, the solar masculine love, and at the same time, I experienced that wound that we had talked about at the very beginning of our conversation. I felt it, and I was like, I do not trust men. I do not trust male energy. And that's what the wound consists of. And in that moment, it was like, what are you going to be true to? Your wound or to love? The love was already there. And it was the love that illuminated the wound, the light that comes in. It just shines the light onto the unconscious place that is a wound that we carry unconsciously. So many of us do, both male and female. And at that moment, it was like I was almost fluttering like a bird, open, close, open, close. But I was already open because the energy of love was already in there, already illuminating. And so the ego just, you know, you think, yeah, you think there's a choice. You know, we're taught that this is a place of free will. There really is no choice. You know, it's love. That's the only choice. There is no other choice, really. So I was very astonished, really. At the beginning of the trip, as I told you, we were asked by Jane, who ran the trip, Jane, to look and see who the overseeing deity of our trip was going to be. And I was told that it was Aten. Aten is the sun god that Akhenaten worshipped, that he brought to Egypt. He is the sun god, the god of the sun. And so we're talking here about the solar masculine, this new energy that is actually very pure, that has nothing to do with the patriarchy. And maybe that was there all along, but somehow it was eclipsed by the way the expression of domination and submission of masculine energy has been so difficult for the last 6,000 years. The men took it to be, well, I can't speak for all men, but it just became an issue of power, tyranny, tyrant victim. And that tyrant victim. But often what happens is the victim can also become the tyrant very easily.
Of course. Yeah.
But let me go on with the.
Please go ahead.
There it was, this experience, and I was completely undone by it for the moment, and I didn't really understand its significance. I shared it with my group, and I shared it with Daniel. And I think Daniel was the one who really understood the real significance of it, not just for myself, but for the collective and for other women. And he asked me to share this thing, hoping that to bring something to light for women, places where there's choice. And it isn't, you could even be in relationship with someone, but you have made an exception. The wound is still there.
Yeah.
It's not the same. I hope I can convey some of this to you.
Yeah. I'm receiving really the vibration that you're trying to transmit, and I understand. I really understand, and I believe that it has to do also with this particular time that we are going through. We're opening to this new energy, right?
Yes, we have to.
We're starting to surrender and to let go these wounds that were in a certain point necessary to learn things, right? Throughout these years, but we are getting to this point where we don't need that anymore.
Exactly. Precisely. We can be very happy without it.
I know. I know.
We can say, thank you very much. You've been wonderful. I'm so grateful to you. Goodbye.
That's right. I was wondering if we could make like a kind of experiment of meditation in which we tapped into this moment where you experience this profound.
That would be fun. Shall we try? So just sit comfortably and make your spine very straight. Allow your shoulders to relax. And move into the center of your head. Center right above the pituitary gland, or right where that is. And open your crown. And also from your crown, go down, all the way down to your root, to the perineal area, the area between your genitals and your anus, the perineal area, and send down a deep cord into the center of the earth and anchor yourself in the very center of our beautiful Mother Earth, so that you know that you are deeply grounded. And now move back to the cave of Brahman, 3 inches back from your forehead, between the eyes, 3 inches deep into the skull, 3 inches down from the center of the top of your head, right in the center of your head, and connect with your crown. Open wide. Now allow the sunlight to pour in. Allow the warmth to penetrate through your skull and pour in. Fill your mind. Fill your head with light and warmth, like sunlight. As if you were sitting outside in the sun, and the sun was making its way, the light was making its way, the heat was pouring into your head, pouring all the way down into your heart. Now allow your heart to receive the warmth, the light, the joy, the love, the caress of love. It falls into you like rain, but it is light, and it is love, and it is warmth. And it heals everything. And from your heart, It makes its way down slowly, pours into your solar plexus, the light, the warmth, a liquid flow of love moves down into your belly. You allow it to spread throughout your entire pelvis. Run down the side of your legs, run down the bones of your legs into your feet, into the soles of your feet. And then allow this light, the sun, this river of love and warmth, allow it to penetrate into the earth. And pour its way into the center of our beautiful Mother Earth. Just know that this is what's available to you always. It's there. You don't have to work hard. It's really about opening. That's all. It's about letting it in. You can let it in your home because it's given freely.